My name is Linda. I'm 28 years old and I just finished packing the last of my belongings into these cardboard boxes scattered around my empty childhood bedroom. The walls that once held my high school graduation photos and college awards now stare back at me bare and cold. 3 years ago, I moved back into this house to help my family through what I thought was a temporary financial crisis. I believed that family meant everything, that we supported each other no matter what. I trusted them completely with my heart, my money, and my future. But there was one moment that changed everything, one conversation that made me realize I wasn't their daughter anymore. I was just their personal ATM machine. Before I tell you what happened, let me know where you're watching from, and hit that like button if you've ever felt taken advantage of by your own family. And please subscribe, because this story shows exactly why sometimes the hardest decision is the right one. Now let me take you back to where it all began. Let me paint you a picture of how this whole mess started. I graduated from the University of Colorado with a degree in accounting back when I was 25. Got myself a solid job at Peterson and Associates, a mid-sized accounting firm in downtown Denver, making $68,000 a year. Not bad for someone just starting out, right? I had my own little apartment on the east side, nothing fancy, but it was mine. I was saving up for a house, maybe planning a trip to Europe. Life was good. Then everything changed 3 years ago. My dad, Harold, who's 55 now, was working construction for Brennan Building Company when a scaffolding collapsed on a job site in Lakewood. Crushed his left leg and messed up his back, something fierce. The doctor said he'd never be able to do heavy labor again. Workers' comp covered some of the medical bills, but not nearly enough. My mom, Beverly, she's 52, was only working part-time at King Soopers grocery store, bringing in maybe $900 a month if she was lucky. My little brother Roger was 21, then going to Front Range Community College and living at home. When I say going to college, I mean he was taking maybe 2 classes a semester and spending the rest of his time in his room playing Call of Duty on his PlayStation. He never had a job, never even looked for one. Mom and Dad always said he needed to focus on his studies, that work would just distract him from getting good grades. Even though his GPA was barely above a 2.5. When Dad got hurt, I saw my family struggling. The mortgage on their house in Thornton was $1,850 a month. Add in utilities, running about 300 groceries for 4 people, hitting 600 easy car insurance for 3 vehicles at 280 plus Dad's medical bills that insurance wouldn't cover, coming to about $400 monthly. They were drowning, and fast. So I made what I thought was the right decision. I gave up my apartment and moved back home to help out. Started covering the mortgage payment every month, took over the utility bills, did all the grocery shopping. I even picked up the car insurance because Dad's accident had made their rates go up. Between everything, I was putting out about $3,400 a month of my take-home pay just to keep the family afloat. I didn't mind it at first. This was my family. Dad was hurt. Mom was doing her best. And I figured once Dad healed up and maybe found some lighter work, things would get back to normal. I'd help them get stable and then move back out, continue with my own life. That was the plan anyway. My daily routine became pretty predictable. Up at 6 in the morning, shower, grab some coffee, and drive 45 minutes to downtown Denver for work. 8 hours pushing numbers around spreadsheets, dealing with tax returns and quarterly reports. Then the drive back home, usually hitting rush hour traffic on I-25, getting home around 6:30 if I was lucky. Mom would always have this look on her face when I walked in, like she was grateful but also kind of expected it, Like this was just how things were supposed to be now. I'd ask what was for dinner, and half the time she'd say she hadn't thought about it yet. So I'd end up cooking for everyone after working all day. Spaghetti and meatballs, chicken and rice, whatever I could throw together quick. Then I'd clean up the kitchen while Roger disappeared back upstairs and Dad watched television in his recliner. Roger never offered to help with anything. Not cooking, not cleaning, not even taking out the trash. When I'd mention it to Mom and Dad, they'd just say he was stressed about school and needed to concentrate on his education. his education that consisted of Introduction to Psychology and some basic math class he was taking for the third time. I started feeling tired all the time, but I told myself this was just temporary. Dad would get better, Roger would graduate and get a job, and things would go back to how they were supposed to be. I was doing my duty as a daughter and a sister. At least that's what I kept telling myself. The first real sign that something was wrong came about 8 months after I'd moved back home. Roger came downstairs one Tuesday evening while I was paying bills at the kitchen table, calculator out, checkbook open, trying to make sure everything would clear before the next paycheck. He sat down across from me with this casual attitude like he was asking me about the weather. "Linda, I need a new laptop for school. The one I've got is like 4 years old and it's running super slow. I can't get my assignments done properly." I looked up from the mortgage statement. "How much are we talking about?" "Well, I found this really nice MacBook Pro at Best Buy. It's got all the features I need for my graphic design class. $2,000, but it's on sale." $2,000. I felt my stomach drop a little. That was more than half a month's mortgage payment. "Roger, that's a lot of money. Are you sure you need something that expensive? Maybe we could find something cheaper that would work just as well." Before Roger could answer, Dad spoke up from his recliner in the living room. "Linda, the boy needs proper tools for his education. You make good money at that accounting job. It's just one time." Mom chimed in from where she was folding laundry on the couch. "He's been struggling with his current computer. If this helps him do better in school, isn't it worth it?" I felt this weird pressure in the room, like everyone was looking at me expectantly. Here I was, already covering all the major expenses, and now they wanted me to drop $2,000 on a laptop for Roger. But the way they were talking about it, like it was just obvious that I should pay, made me feel like I was being unreasonable for even questioning it. "I guess I could put it on my credit card," I said slowly. "But Roger, you'll need to take really good care of it. And maybe you could look into getting a part-time job to help out around here." Roger's face lit up. "Thanks, Linda. You're the best. And yeah, sure, I'll definitely look into getting a job once this semester is over." The semester was over 3 months later. Roger never looked for a job. But he sure enjoyed that MacBook Pro, spending hours on it every day. Though from what I could see when I walked past his room, he wasn't doing homework. He was gaming, watching YouTube videos, and video chatting with friends. I tried not to think about it too much. $2,000 wasn't going to break me, and if it really helped him with school, then maybe it was worth it. But then, about 2 months after the laptop incident, Roger came home one evening with a scrape down the entire left side of his Honda Civic. He'd been backing out of a parking space at the mall and hadn't seen the concrete pillar. The damage wasn't just cosmetic. The side mirror was completely gone. There was a dent in the driver's door that made it hard to open, and something was wrong with the alignment that made the car pull to the left when you drove it. I was in the kitchen making dinner when Roger broke the news. "So, I had a little accident with the car today." Dad was at the table doing some kind of physical therapy exercises the doctor had given him. "What kind of accident?" "Just some body damage. Took it to that place on Federal Boulevard where we got Mom's car fixed last year. They said it'll cost about $3,500 to fix everything properly." $3,500. I stopped stirring the chili I was making and turned around. $3,500, Roger. How did you manage to do $3,500 worth of damage in a parking lot?" He got defensive immediately. "It wasn't my fault that pillar came out of nowhere. Besides, the car's been needing work anyway. The brakes have been squeaking and the transmission makes that weird noise." I looked at Dad, expecting him to talk to Roger about being more careful, about maybe Roger needing to pay for at least part of this himself. Instead, Dad just sighed and looked at me. "Well, Linda, we need the car fixed. Roger needs it to get to school and back. Can you handle this one too? Can I handle this one too?" Like it was just a given that any expense that came up was automatically my responsibility. I felt this little spark of irritation, but I pushed it down. They were family. Family helped each other out. But $3,500 on top of everything else was starting to hurt. I was putting away maybe $400 a month in savings before I moved back home. Now, with all the regular expenses, plus these unexpected costs, my savings account was actually going down. I'd already had to cancel a vacation I'd been planning to take with my friend Donna to San Diego, and I hadn't bought any new clothes in over a year. "Yeah, I can cover it," I said, but my voice sounded flat even to me. Roger brightened up immediately. "Thanks, sis. I'll be super careful from now on, I promise." But he didn't say thank you. Not really. It was more like he expected it, like this was just the natural order of things. Big sister pays for everything little brother gets to coast along without any responsibilities. That weekend, I met up with Donna at a coffee shop on South Broadway. We'd been friends since college, and she was one of the few people I felt comfortable talking to about family stuff. $3,500. Donna nearly choked on her latte. "Linda, that's insane. He crashed the car and you're paying to fix it." "It's not that simple," I said, but even as the words came out, they felt weak. "The family needs the car. Dad can't work. Mom barely makes anything at the grocery store. I'm the only one with a decent income." Donna leaned forward across the small table. "But what about your income? What about your savings, your future? You've been supporting them for almost a year now. When does it end?" I stirred my coffee, not meeting her eyes. "When Dad gets better and finds work. When Roger graduates and gets a job. It's temporary." "Is it though?" "Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like they've gotten pretty comfortable with you paying for everything." I wanted to argue with her to defend my family, but something in her words hit too close to home. That night, lying in my childhood bed that I'd moved back into, I started thinking about Roger's behavior. When was the last time he'd thanked me for anything? When was the last time he'd offered to help with chores around the house? When was the last time Mom or Dad had asked me how I was doing with all this financial pressure instead of just assuming I could handle whatever came up? The more I thought about it, the more uncomfortable I became. But I pushed those feelings away. This was family. This was what families did for each other. Winter came and went, and nothing changed. If anything, the requests started getting bigger and coming more frequently. Roger needed money for textbooks. Dad wanted to upgrade his prescription pain medication to something stronger that insurance wouldn't cover. Mom's car needed new tires. Each time the conversation was the same. They'd present the expense to me like it was already decided that I'd pay. No discussion about whether we could afford it, no suggestions about cutting back on other things, no acknowledgement that I might have my own financial goals and limitations. Just an expectation that I'd open my wallet and solve whatever problem had come up. I was starting to feel the strain for real now. My savings account, which had taken me 3 years to build up to almost $20,000, was down to about $4,000. I'd stopped going out with friends because I couldn't afford to spend money on entertainment. I was driving a 6-year-old Toyota Camry that needed work, but I couldn't justify spending money on my own car when the family kept having emergencies. But the real wake-up call came on a Tuesday evening in March. I was grading some tax returns I'd brought home from work when Roger came bounding down the stairs with this huge grin on his face. "Family meeting," he announced like he was the head of the household, instead of the unemployed 21-year-old who contributed exactly nothing to the family finances. Mom and Dad gathered in the living room, and Roger stood in front of the television like he was about to give a presentation. "I've been thinking about my future," he began, "and I've decided I want to transfer to Colorado State University in Fort Collins to finish my bachelor's degree. I want to study business administration." My first thought was actually positive. Finally, Roger was taking his education seriously, thinking about his future. Maybe this would be the motivation he needed to really apply himself. "That's great, Roger," I said. "When are you thinking about making the transfer?" "This fall." "I've already talked to an admissions counselor, and they'll accept most of my community college credits. I'd need to do 2 more years to get my degree." Dad was nodding approvingly. "That's my boy. A real university degree that'll open doors for you." Mom was practically glowing. I'm so proud of you for thinking ahead like this. Then Roger dropped the bomb. The tuition is $28,000 a year for in-state students. Plus I'd need to live on campus, which is about $12,000 a year for room and board. So we're looking at $40,000 a year for 2 years. $80,000 total. The room went completely silent. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. $80,000. That was more than my entire annual salary. I waited for someone to mention scholarships, student loans, Roger getting a job to help pay for it. But nobody said anything. They were all looking at me. Finally, Dad cleared his throat. We've discussed this as a family, Linda. Roger needs this education for his future. He can't get anywhere in life with just a community college degree. Discuss this as a family, I repeated slowly. I don't remember being part of any discussion. Mom jumped in. Well, we knew you'd want what's best for Roger. You don't have kids of your own, so you don't have the same expenses we do. This is an investment in our family's future. I felt my face getting hot. Mom, I've been paying for everything in this house for almost 2 years. The mortgage, the utilities, the groceries, the car insurance, plus Roger's laptop, his car repairs, Dad's medication. I've spent almost $60,000 keeping this family afloat. Roger actually had the nerve to look annoyed. That's different, Linda. That's just helping out. This is about my education, my career. Besides, you make good money and it's not like you need it for anything specific. I stared at him. Not like I need it for anything specific, Roger. I haven't taken a vacation in 2 years. I haven't bought new clothes. I haven't been able to save for my own house. I've put my entire life on hold to support this family. Dad's expression was getting harder. That's enough, Linda. Family takes care of family. Roger is just starting out in life. You're already established. Established? I stood up, feeling shaky. Dad, I'm 28 years old. I should be building my own life, saving for my own future. You're asking me to spend my entire life savings plus go into debt so Roger can go to a 4-year university. Beverly's voice got that manipulative tone she used when she really wanted something. Linda, honey, think about it as an investment. Once Roger gets his degree and starts making good money, he can help support the family too. But right now, you're the only one who can make this happen for him. I looked around the room at their faces. Dad was stern and disapproving, like I was being selfish for even questioning this. Mom looked hurt and disappointed. And Roger just looked entitled, like I owed him this massive sacrifice just because we shared the same last name. What about my future? I asked quietly. What about my dreams? What about the house I want to buy someday, or the family I might want to have? Harold's response cut me to the bone. You're already established, Linda. You have a good job, you're making decent money. Roger is just starting out. He needs this opportunity. Beverly nodded along. Besides investing in Roger's education is investing in the whole family's future. Someday when we're older, we'll need someone to take care of us. Roger will be in a better position to help if he has a good education. That's when it hit me. They weren't seeing me as their daughter with my own dreams and needs. They were seeing me as a resource, a way to fund Roger's life, while ensuring their own future security. I was supposed to sacrifice everything so Roger could have opportunities, and then someday Roger would take care of them in their old age. Where did that leave me? I felt sick to my stomach. I need to think about this. Roger's face fell. Think about what, Linda. I've already started the application process. I told my friends I was transferring. You can't just back out now. Roger, you started applying to a $40,000 a year university without even asking if I could afford it. I assumed you'd want to help, he said, and there was that entitlement again. I walked upstairs to my room and closed the door. For the first time in 2 years, I let myself really think about what my life had become. I was working 45 hours a week and bringing home every paycheck to support a family that took my sacrifice for granted. I hadn't been on a date in over a year because I couldn't afford to go out. I was 28 years old and living in my childhood bedroom because I'd given up my independence to solve everyone else's problems. And now they wanted $80,000 more dollars. Money I didn't have. Money that would require me to drain my savings completely and probably take out loans against my own future. The next few days were absolute hell. Mom and Dad weren't speaking to me unless they absolutely had to. When I'd come home from work, Dad would be sitting in his chair with this disappointed expression, shaking his head when he saw me. Mom would make pointed comments about family loyalty and how some people only thought about themselves. But Roger was the worst. He'd started this passive-aggressive campaign to make me feel guilty about ruining his future. He'd leave college brochures on my desk with his dream school circled in red ink. He'd talk loudly on the phone to his friends about how his family situation might prevent him from getting his degree. He even went so far as to suggest that maybe I should look into getting a second job on weekends to help make the tuition payments more manageable. A second job. So I could work 7 days a week to fund his college experience while he continued to contribute absolutely nothing to the household. The pressure was affecting my work. I found myself making mistakes on tax returns, missing details I would normally catch. My supervisor, Janet Carlson, called me into her office on a Thursday afternoon. "Linda, I wanted to check in with you. Your work quality has been slipping lately and you seem distracted. Is everything okay at home?" I wanted to tell her everything to explain that my family was demanding I bankrupt myself to pay for my brother's education, but it sounded so ridiculous when I thought about saying it out loud. "Just some family stuff," I said. "I'll get it together." Janet leaned back in her chair. "Look, I like you, Linda. You're normally one of our most reliable people. But we're heading into busy season, and I need to know you're going to be focused. If there are personal issues affecting your performance, you need to handle them." The implication was clear. Fix whatever was going on at home, or my job could be in jeopardy. I'd worked too hard to build my career to let family drama destroy it. That night I did something I hadn't done in months. I called my friend Donna and asked if I could come over to talk. I needed perspective from someone outside the situation. Donna lived in a cute townhouse in Highlands, and when I got there, she took one look at my face and opened a bottle of wine. "They want you to pay $80,000 for Roger's college." She poured 2 large glasses. "Linda, that's insane. That's criminal. They're basically asking you to give up your entire future so your unemployed brother can party at a state university." "It's not just partying," I said weakly. "He wants to study business." "Business?" Donna laughed, but there was no humor in it. "The kid who's never held a job in his life wants to study business, and he expects his sister to go into debt to make it happen." I sipped the wine and felt some of the tension in my shoulders start to ease. "They keep saying it's an investment in the family's future." "Whose future? Because it sure isn't yours." Donna sat down across from me. "Linda, I need to ask you something, and I want you to really think about the answer. In the 2 years you've been supporting your family, how many times have they asked about your dreams, your goals, your future plans?" I opened my mouth to answer, then stopped. I couldn't think of a single time. Every conversation about the future centered around Dad's recovery, or Roger's education, or the family's financial stability. Nobody had asked me what I wanted, what I was hoping for, what my 5-year plan looked like. "That's what I thought," Donna said gently. "They've gotten so used to you being the solution to all their problems that they've forgotten you're a person with your own life to live." I spent the next week really looking at my situation objectively. I did the math on what my life would look like if I paid for Roger's education. My savings would be completely gone. I'd have to take out personal loans to cover the costs, which would mean payments for years to come. I wouldn't be able to buy a house until I was well into my 30s. I wouldn't be able to afford to have kids of my own, wouldn't be able to take care of myself if I got sick or injured. And what guarantee did I have that Roger would actually graduate? He'd been coasting through community college for 3 years, barely maintaining a C average. What if he flunked out after I'd spent $40,000 on his first year? What if he decided to change majors and needed extra time to graduate? Would they expect me to keep paying indefinitely? I started looking at apartments online just to see what my options would be if I moved out. A decent one-bedroom place would run me about $1,200 a month, which was totally manageable on my salary. I could live comfortably, start saving again, maybe even start dating again. The more I researched, the more I realized how much I'd given up. I was living like a financial prisoner in my own family's house, pouring every dollar I earned into keeping everyone else afloat while my own life stood still. But the moment that really opened my eyes happened on a Sunday afternoon. I was upstairs in my room trying to work on some continuing education courses for my CPA certification, when I heard voices from the living room below. The heating vents in our old house carried sound really well, and I could hear Mom, Dad, and Roger having a conversation. "She's being incredibly selfish about this," Dad was saying. "After everything we've done for her, this is how she repays us." "I don't understand it," Mom replied. "She makes more money than she needs. It's not like she has a husband or children to support." Then I heard Roger's voice, and what he said made my blood run cold. "If she doesn't pay for my tuition, I'll just have to take out student loans and struggle for years to pay them back. It'll be her fault if I can't afford to help take care of you guys when you get older." "Maybe we didn't raise her right," Mom said sadly. "Maybe we were too soft on her, didn't teach her enough about family obligation." Dad's voice got harder. "Well, if she wants to be selfish, she can live with the consequences. But she'll regret this someday when we're gone, and she realizes what she threw away." I sat there listening to them plan my guilt trip, talking about me like I was some kind of ungrateful burden instead of the person who'd been keeping them financially stable for 2 years. They weren't considering my perspective at all, weren't acknowledging the massive sacrifices I'd already made. In their minds, I was just being difficult and selfish. But the worst part was what I heard next. Roger started talking about his girlfriend Janet and how she might move in with him when he transferred to CSU. "We'll need to clear out some space for her stuff," Roger said casually. "Maybe we could box up some of Linda's old things, make room in the closets." They were planning their future without me talking about making space for Roger's girlfriend, while assuming I'd just keep paying for everything from a distance. They saw me as a bank account, not a family member. That night I called the one person I thought might give me perspective without judgment, my grandmother Rose. She was 78 and had always been the wisest person in our family. "Grandma Rose, can I ask you something about family obligations?" "Of course, sweetheart. What's on your mind?" I explained the whole situation, from moving back home to help with Dad's injury to the current demand that I fund Roger's university education. When I finished, there was a long silence on the other end of the phone. "Linda," Grandma Rose finally said, "did you know your parents came to me first asking for money for Roger's college?" My heart stopped. "What?" "About 2 months ago. They wanted me to take out a loan against my house to pay for his tuition. I told them absolutely not, that it was ridiculous to expect family members to go into debt for Roger's education when he'd never shown any real commitment to school. I felt like the air had been knocked out of me. They never mentioned that. I also told them it wasn't fair to put that kind of financial pressure on you either. Harold got angry with me, said I didn't understand family loyalty." Her voice got firmer. "Let me tell you something, Linda. Family supports each other, but they don't sacrifice one child for another. What they're asking you to do isn't love, it's exploitation." After I hung up with Grandma Rose, I sat in my room for a long time thinking. My own grandmother had seen this situation more clearly than I had. She'd recognized that what my parents were asking was unreasonable and unfair, and she'd refused to enable it. If a 78-year-old woman could set boundaries with her own children, why couldn't I? I made my decision on a Tuesday night in April. I'd been going back and forth for weeks, feeling guilty and conflicted, but finally I realized that I had to choose between my family's demands and my own future. And for the first time in 2 years, I was going to choose myself. I spent the next day apartment hunting during my lunch break. I found a perfect one-bedroom place in Capitol Hill, about 20 minutes from my office. It had hardwood floors, big windows, and most importantly, it was mine. The The rent was $1,150 a month, which was totally manageable. I could move in the 1st of May. I put down a deposit and signed the lease that afternoon. That evening, I asked everyone to gather in the living room. Mom was folding laundry on the couch, Dad was in his recliner watching the news, and Roger was on his laptop, probably gaming. "I need to tell you all something," I said, standing in front of the television. Dad muted the TV and looked at me expectantly. "If this is about Roger's tuition, Linda, we really need to get the paperwork submitted soon." "It is about the tuition," I said, my heart pounding. "I've thought about it carefully, and I've decided I won't be paying for Roger's college education." The room exploded. Dad shot out of his recliner like I'd set him on fire. "What do you mean you won't pay after everything this family has done for you?" "What exactly has this family done for me?" I asked, my voice steadier than I felt. "I've been supporting everyone financially for 2 years. I've paid $67,000 in expenses that weren't mine. I've given up my savings, my social life, my independence, and my future plans." Beverly started crying. "How can you abandon your family like this? How can you be so heartless?" Roger slammed his laptop shut. "You're ruining my life. I've already told everyone I'm transferring. I'll never forgive you for this." "I'm not abandoning anyone," I said firmly. "I'm setting reasonable boundaries. I can't afford to pay for Roger's college without destroying my own financial future." Dad was pacing now, his face red with anger. "Reasonable boundaries. You make $50,000 a year more than your mother. You don't have children, you don't have a mortgage, you don't have the responsibilities we do." "I don't have those things because I've been too busy paying for your responsibilities," I shot back. "And for your information, I'd like to have my own house someday. I'd like to get married and have children. But I can't do any of that if I spend the next 2 years paying for Roger's education." Mom's tears were flowing freely now. "We raised you, we fed you, we put you through college. Doesn't that mean anything to you?" "It means everything to me," I said, and I meant it. "But you put me through college because that's what parents do for their children. I don't owe you a lifetime of financial servitude because you fulfilled your parental obligations." Roger jumped up from the couch. "This is so unfair. Other people's families help them with college. Why can't you just be a good sister?" "Because being a good sister doesn't mean sacrificing my entire future for your convenience," I replied. "If you want to go to CSU, you can apply for financial aid like millions of other students do. You can get a job and work your way through school. You can take out student loans." "Student loans will ruin my life," Roger whined. "And paying for your education will ruin mine," I said simply. Dad stopped pacing and turned to face me, his expression cold. "If you walk away from this family now, don't come crawling back when you need help. If you leave, you're not welcome back." "Harold, don't say that," Mom whispered, but she didn't sound like she really meant it. "No, Beverly, she needs to understand the consequences of her selfishness," Dad continued. "If Linda wants to put herself before her family, then she's not really family anymore." Roger was nodding along enthusiastically. "Exactly. If something happens to Dad's health again, don't expect us to call you. If we lose the house that's on you, you'll have to live with knowing you could have prevented it." I looked around the room at these people I'd loved and supported for 2 years, and I realized they weren't trying to guilt me into staying. They were showing me exactly who they really were. In their minds, I only had value as long as I was useful to them financially. "I understand," I said quietly, "and I've made my decision. I'm moving out next week." The silence that followed was deafening. Finally, Mom spoke up, her voice small and manipulative. "Linda, honey, maybe we can work something out. Maybe you could just pay for the first year, see how Roger does, and then we'll figure out the rest." It was tempting, I'll admit. The idea of compromise, of not having to make this clean break. But I knew that if I gave in even a little bit, I'd be right back where I started. They'd find new ways to pressure me, new emergencies that required my financial intervention. "No, Mom, I'm done. I'll finish paying this month's bills, and then you'll need to figure out how to manage your finances without me." Dad's face was getting redder by the minute. "You'll regret this, Linda. Someday when you're old and alone, you'll remember this moment and wish you'd chosen differently." I walked toward the stairs, then turned back to look at them one more time. You know what I'll remember? I'll remember that when I finally found the courage to stand up for myself and my future, my own family threatened to disown me. I'll remember that you cared more about money than about my happiness or well-being. Roger made one last desperate attempt. "Linda, wait. What if I get a part-time job and pay back some of the tuition? What if I promise to help with household expenses after I graduate?" I almost laughed. "Roger, you've been promising to get a job for 2 years. You've never even looked for one. Why would I believe you now?" I went upstairs and closed my bedroom door. Behind me, I could hear them continuing to argue, probably trying to figure out how to change my mind. But for the first time in months, I felt something I'd almost forgotten: relief. I was finally choosing myself. Moving day was the following Saturday. I'd spent the week packing my belongings while my family gave me the silent treatment. It was actually kind of peaceful not having to listen to their guilt trips and manipulation tactics. I'd arranged for a small moving truck to come at 9 in the morning. As I was taping up the last few boxes, I found myself looking through some old photo albums from my childhood. Pictures of family vacations, birthday parties, Christmas mornings. We looked so happy in those photos, like a normal, loving family. I felt a pang of sadness, wondering when things had changed, when I'd stopped being their daughter and started being their financial solution. But I couldn't let nostalgia override my decision. Those happy times were in the past, and I had to deal with the reality of who my family was now. Mom tried one last manipulation tactic. She came into my room carrying my old stuffed elephant, Mr. Peanuts, that I'd had since I was 5 years old. "I found this in the attic," she said, her eyes red from crying. "Remember how you used to carry him everywhere? You were such a sweet little girl, always wanting to help everyone." She set Mr. Peanuts on my bed and looked at me with this wounded expression. "I just don't understand how that sweet little girl grew up to be someone who could walk away from her family." It was a low blow, trying to use my childhood memories against me. But I'd learned to recognize these tactics over the past few weeks. I'm still that person who wants to help everyone, Mom. But I've learned that helping people shouldn't require me to destroy my own life. I picked up Mr. Peanuts and packed him in one of my boxes. I was taking my childhood memories with me, but I wasn't going to let them be used as weapons against my future. The movers arrived right on time. As they started loading my furniture and boxes into the truck, I noticed the neighbors were watching from their windows. Mrs. Shirley from next door came over while I was directing the movers. "Moving out, dear?" she asked kindly. "Yes, finally getting my own place again," I said. Mrs. Shirley nodded knowingly. "Good for you, honey. Your parents have been complaining about you not doing enough for the family, but I've seen how hard you work and how much you've sacrificed. You deserve to have your own life." It was validating to hear that someone outside the family could see the situation clearly. Mrs. Shirley had watched me leave for work every morning and come home every evening, had seen me carrying grocery bags and paying for repairs on the house. She knew exactly how much I'd been contributing. "Thank you," I said. "That means more than you know." As the moving truck pulled away from the house I'd grown up in, I felt a mixture of sadness and freedom. My parents had stayed inside during the entire move, unwilling to even say goodbye. Roger had made a point of being out with friends, avoiding the whole thing. My new apartment felt huge after living in my childhood bedroom for 2 years. It was small, probably 600 square feet total, but every inch of it was mine. I could decorate however I wanted, eat whatever I felt like cooking, watch whatever I wanted on TV, without anyone else's input. That first night I ordered Chinese takeout and ate it sitting on my living room floor, surrounded by boxes. I felt lonely, but it was a different kind of loneliness than I'd felt living with my family. This was the loneliness of new beginnings, not the loneliness of being invisible in my own life. My phone started ringing around 8 o'clock. First it was my Aunt Paula, then my Uncle Fred, then various cousins I barely talked to. Word had gotten out that I'd moved out and refused to pay for Roger's college, and apparently my parents had been calling relatives to get them to pressure me into changing my mind. Each conversation was basically the same. The relative would express concern about family unity and suggest that maybe I was being too harsh. They'd heard from Mom and Dad that I was abandoning the family in their time of need, and that Roger's entire future was in jeopardy because of my selfishness. But I'd learned something important over the past few weeks. I didn't have to justify my decisions to everyone. I gave each relative the same calm explanation. I'd been supporting the family financially for 2 years, had spent over $60,000 doing so, and simply couldn't afford to take on $80,000 more in college expenses without destroying my own financial future. Some of them got it. My Aunt Geraldine, Dad's sister, actually said she was proud of me for standing up for myself. She told me she'd been worried about how much I was sacrificing and thought my parents were taking advantage of my generosity. Others didn't understand and seemed to think I was being unreasonable. But their opinions didn't matter as much as I thought they would. These were people who had no idea what my daily life had been like, who hadn't witnessed the constant pressure and guilt trips and entitlement. The most surprising call came on Tuesday evening. My parents had somehow gotten my work number and called me at the office. "Linda, this is ridiculous," Dad said without any preamble. "You need to come home, and we need to work this out as a family." "I am home, Dad. I'm in my own apartment now." "That's not home, that's just some rental. Home is where your family is." I could hear Mom crying in the background, and it tugged at my heart. But I'd learned to distinguish between genuine emotion and emotional manipulation. "Dad, I'm not changing my mind about Roger's tuition. If that's what this call is about, then we don't have anything to discuss." "Fine," he said angrily, "but don't come crawling back when you realize what you've given up." He hung up on me, and I sat at my desk for a few minutes processing the conversation. Part of me wanted to call back to try to explain my position one more time to see if there was any way to repair our relationship without compromising my boundaries. But I knew it wouldn't work. They'd made it clear that they valued my financial contributions more than my well-being. Until they could accept that I had the right to make my own decisions about my money and my future, there wasn't going to be any real relationship to repair. 6 months later, I was sitting in my favorite coffee shop in Capitol Hill, reviewing some continuing education materials for my CPA certification when my phone rang. It was a number I didn't recognize, but something made me answer it. "Linda, it's Mom." I nearly dropped my phone. We hadn't spoken since the day I moved out. "Hi, Mom." Her voice sounded smaller than I remembered, less confident. "How are you doing, honey?" "I'm doing well. How are you?" There was a long pause. "We're managing. It's been hard, but we're figuring things out." I waited for her to continue, not sure where this conversation was going. "Linda, I wanted to call and apologize. Your father and I have had a lot of time to think about things, and we realize we may have been unfair to you." It was the first acknowledgement I'd heard from either of my parents that they might have been wrong. I felt a little spark of hope, but I was cautious. "What's changed?" I asked. Mom sighed. "Roger got a job at the Applebee's on Colfax. He's been working there for 3 months now, paying some of the household bills. It's been good for him, actually. He's more responsible than he used to be." I was genuinely surprised. "That's great, Mom. I'm proud of him for stepping up. He still wants to go to CSU eventually, but he's talking about saving up money first, maybe applying for financial aid. He's realized that expecting you to pay for everything wasn't fair." It was progress more than I'd expected. But I needed to know that this wasn't just another attempt to get me to come back and resume my role as the family ATM. "What about Dad's medical bills? The mortgage? Are you guys managing okay?" "It's tight," Mom admitted. "Your father found some part-time work doing bookkeeping for a small construction company. His back still bothers him, but he can handle desk work. And I picked up some extra hours at the store." "That's really good to hear." There was another pause, and when Mom spoke again, her voice was shaky. "Linda, we miss you. The house feels empty without you here. We made mistakes and we're sorry. We took advantage of your generosity, and we made you feel like your only value to us was financial. That wasn't fair and it wasn't right." I felt tears starting to form in my eyes. This was what I'd been hoping to hear for months, some acknowledgement that they understood what they'd put me through. "Thank you for saying that, Mom. It means a lot." "Oh, would you be willing to have dinner with us sometime? Just to talk, not to ask you for anything? We want to rebuild our relationship with you, and we understand if you need more time." I thought about it carefully. I'd spent 6 months creating a new life for myself, establishing boundaries, learning to prioritize my own needs. I was stronger now than I'd been when I lived with them, less likely to be manipulated or guilted into making decisions I'd regret. "I'd like that," I said finally. "But I need you to understand that things can't go back to how they were before. I can't be responsible for everyone else's financial problems." "We understand," Mom said quickly. "We don't want you to take care of us anymore. We want you to be our daughter, not our bank account." We talked for a few more minutes, and by the time I hung up, I felt cautiously optimistic. It would take time to rebuild trust, and there would probably be setbacks along the way. But at least they seemed to understand that what they'd been asking of me wasn't sustainable or fair. 3 weeks later, I had dinner with my parents at a restaurant in Thornton. It was awkward at first, but gradually we started talking like a family again, instead of like financial adversaries. Dad apologized for the way he'd treated me, admitting that his pride had been hurt by his injury and inability to provide for the family the way he used to. He'd taken out his frustration on me instead of dealing with his own feelings of inadequacy. Roger joined us for dessert, and I was amazed by the change in him. Working at Applebee's had given him confidence and a sense of responsibility I'd never seen before. He apologized for his entitled attitude and thanked me for all the years I'd supported the family. He even offered to pay me back for some of the expenses I'd covered, though I told him that wasn't necessary. "Just keep taking care of yourself and contributing to the household," I said. "That's payment enough." It wasn't a perfect reconciliation. There were still moments of tension, still old patterns that occasionally surfaced. But we were building something new and healthier than what we'd had before. Meanwhile, my own life was flourishing in ways I'd never expected. The promotion I'd been hoping for at work came through along with a 15% salary increase. Without the burden of supporting my entire family, I was able to save money again aggressively this time. I'd also started dating someone. His name was Craig, and he was a teacher at a local high school. What I loved most about him was that he respected my boundaries and supported my decisions. When I told him about the situation with my family, he didn't suggest that I should sacrifice more or try harder to please them. He just listened and affirmed that I'd done the right thing in standing up for myself. "You can't set yourself on fire to keep other people warm," he said one evening as we walked through Washington Park. "Family relationships should add to your life, not consume it." Craig and I had been dating for 4 months when I realized I was falling in love with him. It was the first time in years that I'd been emotionally available enough to build a romantic relationship, and it felt amazing to have someone in my life who saw me as more than just a provider or a solution to problems. We started talking about moving in together, maybe getting engaged within the next year. For the first time since my early 20s, I was thinking about my own future, instead of just surviving everyone else's crises. I'd also been able to pursue some personal interests that I'd neglected during my years of financial servitude. I signed up for a pottery class, joined a hiking group, and started learning Spanish through an online program. These weren't big accomplishments, but they represented something important. I was living my own life again instead of just existing to serve others. The best part was that my relationship with my family actually improved once I stopped being their financial crutch. We started having real conversations about things other than money and expenses. I got to know Roger as a person instead of just as someone who needed things paid for. I saw Dad's sense of humor return as he regained some independence and self-respect through his part-time work. Mom and I started having weekly phone calls where we talked about everything except family finances. She told me about her coworkers at the grocery store, her book club, her garden. I told her about my dates with Craig, my continuing education classes, my plans to buy a house. It felt like we were related by choice instead of just by obligation. Now, as I finish packing the last of my belongings in this apartment to move into the house Craig and I just bought together, I can honestly say that walking away from my family's financial demands was the best decision I ever made. It wasn't easy. There were months of guilt moments when I wondered if I was being too selfish, nights when I lay awake worrying about whether my parents were okay. But I learned something crucial during that time. You can love your family without sacrificing your entire future for them. Setting boundaries didn't destroy my family relationships, it saved them. Once the financial pressure was removed, we were able to build connections based on love and respect instead of obligation and resentment. My parents learned to solve their own problems and take pride in their independence. Roger discovered his own capabilities and work ethic. And I learned that my worth as a daughter and sister wasn't measured by how much money I could provide. I'm not angry at my family anymore. I understand that Dad's injury had left him feeling helpless and emasculated, and asking me to take care of everyone was his way of trying to maintain some control over the situation. Mom was overwhelmed and scared about their financial future, and she saw me as a lifeline. Roger was young and had never been taught to take responsibility for himself. None of that excuses the way they treated me, but understanding their motivations helped me forgive them and move forward. Forgiveness doesn't mean accepting unacceptable behavior, it means releasing the anger so you can make clear-headed decisions about your future. The most important lesson I learned is that family loyalty should flow in both directions. If someone claims to love you, but consistently asks you to sacrifice your well-being for their benefit, that's not love, it's exploitation. Real family members want you to succeed and be happy even if it means they can't depend on you to solve all their problems. I also learned that it's okay to put yourself first sometimes. Women especially are taught from an early age that we're supposed to take care of everyone else before we take care of ourselves, that self-sacrifice is noble and selfishness is shameful. But there's a difference between being selfish and having self-respect. Taking care of your own needs and protecting your own future isn't selfish, it's responsible. If I hadn't moved out when I did, I'd probably still be living in my childhood bedroom, working to pay for Roger's college expenses and whatever other financial emergencies came up. I'd be 30 years old with no savings, no romantic relationship, no prospect of ever having my own family or achieving my own dreams. I'd be angry and resentful, which would have eventually destroyed my relationships with my parents and brother anyway. Instead, I'm engaged to a man who respects and supports me. I'm a homeowner, I have a growing career and a bright future. And I have a relationship with my family that's based on love instead of financial dependency. That's not to say everything is perfect. There are still moments when old patterns try to resurface, when someone in the family starts hinting that they could use some financial help. But I've learned to recognize those moments and address them directly instead of just opening my wallet. Last month, Roger mentioned that he was thinking about taking out a small loan to buy a reliable used car since his old Honda was breaking down constantly. The old me would have immediately offered to buy him a car. The new me listened to his plan, offered to help him research loan options and find a good used car dealer, but didn't offer to pay for anything. He didn't expect me to pay, and he didn't seem disappointed when I didn't offer. He just wanted advice and support, which I was happy to provide. It was a healthy interaction between siblings, the kind I'd never experienced before. I still help my family sometimes, but now it's on my terms and within my boundaries. When Dad was having trouble with his bookkeeping software, I spent a Saturday afternoon teaching him how to use it properly. When Mom wanted to surprise Dad with a nice dinner for their anniversary, I suggested some restaurants and offered to babysit their dog so they could stay out late. These are the kinds of help that families should provide for each other, support that doesn't require anyone to sacrifice their own future. The irony is that I'm actually closer to my family now than I was when I was supporting them financially. When you're resentful about being taken advantage of, it's hard to enjoy spending time with people even if you love them. Now that the financial pressure is gone, I can focus on enjoying their company and building positive memories together. Craig and I are planning to get married next spring, and my whole family is excited about the wedding. Roger offered to help with setup and cleanup. Dad wants to give a speech at the reception, and Mom is already planning what she's going to wear. They're involved because they want to celebrate with me, not because they need something from me. This is what healthy family relationships look like. So if you're watching this because you're in a similar situation, being pressured by family members to make financial sacrifices that will hurt your own future, please know that it's okay to say no. It's okay to set boundaries. It's okay to prioritize your own financial security and life goals. You're not being selfish by refusing to bankrupt yourself for other people's dreams. You're not being ungrateful by declining to sacrifice your future for their present convenience. You're being responsible and self-respecting, and those are good qualities to have. The people who truly love you will eventually understand and respect your boundaries, even if they're angry or disappointed at first. The people who don't understand, who continue to pressure you and guilt you and manipulate you, are showing you that they value your wallet more than your well-being. Your dreams matter. Your future matters. Your financial security matters. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise, not even family members who claim to love you. Sometimes the hardest thing to do is also the right thing to do. Standing up for yourself might feel scary and selfish, but it's actually brave and necessary. You deserve to live your own life, not just exist to solve other people's problems. Trust me on this. You're stronger than you think you are, and you deserve better than being treated like a human ATM machine, even by people you love. Have you ever been in a situation where family members expected you to make major financial sacrifices for them? How did you handle it? Let me know in the comments below, because I'd love to hear your stories and support anyone going through something similar. And if this story resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe for more real-life stories about setting boundaries and choosing yourself. Share this video with anyone who might need to hear this message, because sometimes we all need permission to put ourselves first. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember that your future is worth fighting for, even if you have to fight the people you love most to protect it. You've got this, and you deserve all the happiness and success that comes from living life on your own terms.